Great. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Kelly, a member of the Dubuque League of Women Voters. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active citizen participation in government. Membership is open to anyone 18 years of older, as long as they're a citizen. We would like to thank the City Council and mayoral primary candidates for their participation this evening and for their invaluable gift to Dubuque by being candidates for public office. The 5 candidates who are running for mayor of Dubuque are Brad Kavanaugh, Nino Erba, John Miller, David Resnick, and April White. The 2 highest vote getters at the October 5th primary will move on to the November 2nd ballot. The 4 people running for at-large council are Tim Flynn, Michaela Freiburger, Rick Jones, and Louis Michalakis. 2 of these candidates will also move on to the November 2nd ballot after the October 5th primary. Mr. Kavanaugh, we're going to begin with you. Please tell us why you are a candidate for the Dubuque City Council.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mary, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to everyone here tonight for a great discussion ahead. I'm Brad Kavanaugh. I currently serve on the City Council. I represent the 4th Ward, so the downtown area of Dubuque. And I'm running for mayor because I know that we need really strong leadership in the next 4 years in the city of Dubuque. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. We've had a really challenging and difficult year in a lot of different ways. And what we need right now is someone who is going to have several qualities to be able to take us into and really lead us through the next 4 years. So I'm looking for a few things in our next mayor. And one of those things is the ability to foster unity and a common vision within our community. I think more than anything right now, we have seen ourselves being torn apart from within, and not just in the city of Dubuque, but all over. And we need a mayor who is ready to lead by example and lead with respect and lead in a way that brings people together around the table to form a common vision and actually reach out to people to get opinions from all across the sector. We need somebody who's ready to create opportunity for everyone. My stance is that if you live in Dubuque, you are a Dubuquer, and we have each other's backs in Dubuque. The third thing is we need someone who's ready to work to secure our future, and that means several things. An economy that's built to last, a community that's safe, and also a community that is sustainable and resilient. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. And of course, I apologize. I understand you're running for mayor and not city council. My mistake.
That's okay. Thank you.
Right. And Mr. Erba, same question.
Yes, well, thank you, Mary Kelly. Thank you, Jean Cheever. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for helping put this on. Thank you, TH, for being here tonight. The reason that I am running for mayor is because as part of the millennial generation, I have witnessed a lot of atrocities that have happened for most of my lifetime, and throughout those years, I have witnessed, changes in leadership and changes between the hands of Democrat, Republican, all across the political spectrum, and I've noticed that whoever seems to be in charge doesn't seem to fix the problems, and I feel like it's time for fresh blood to come in and make sure that those problems are fixed. And to help illustrate this point, I'd like to quote the good book, Matthew 7:24 through 27, the 2 foundations. Everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house. But it did not collapse. It had been set solidly on rock. And everyone who listens to these words of mine, but does not act on them, will be like a fool who built his house on sand. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house, and it collapsed and was completely ruined. We have an opportunity to take the next path for not just the 4 years, but 10 years. Will we continue building our house on sand with the status quo? Will we let our house collapse entirely with right-wing extremism? Or will we build our house on rock and follow progressive values? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, please respond.
Thank you. And thank you all for allowing us to appear And it's being a little bit later in the sequence is easier for me because then I say I agree with heartily with what Mr. Kavanaugh said and what Mr. Erba said. And no, there is obviously a bit more to that. I enjoyed collecting the signatures because for my platform planks, I simply took notes in my mind as the citizen said, "You're running for mayor, are you? Well, this is what we need to do. We need to do this and this and this and this and this." And it was great fun, and it was very educational, as you might imagine. And one of the points I'd like to make right off the bat, I'd like to make 2 points, is that many people are interested in having a separate office for the mayor, and an office in which there's staff, and an office for which there's adequate parking, as somebody did mention that. And the other part of what's next, let me back up and say that I'll preface what I say next with the notion that I believe, considering my background, I'm capable of presenting to the citizens the most difficult tasks which have to be addressed. And especially, obviously, we have to begin with health and what we do in these COVID times, which are not ending. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Resnick?
Thank you very much. My name is David Resnick, a veteran of 14 years on the City Council, and I also want to thank the wonderful League of Women Voters, nonpartisan, which I really appreciate. I'm running for mayor because I care deeply about Dubuque, and I'm convinced that we can be a thriving community that is economically strong, inclusive, and beautiful in every sense of that word. I have a proven track record of fiscal responsibility and independent thinking. And what I've learned is that the 2 most important qualities for the office of mayor is experience and commitment. So after watching Mayor Buell and other mayors deciding, oh, I like what happens there, or I wouldn't do that, I realized that being mayor of Dubuque is not for beginners. There's too much at stake for all of us. There's a price to pay if our mayor is not quite ready for prime time. And I'm ready. I've learned that the success of Dubuque is a result of the citizens coming together, rolling up their sleeves, and working as a pragmatic, positive, and collaborative leader. And I intend to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. White? Oh, I'm sorry. Is she going to be participating? Oh. All right. Ms. White is not participating in this forum. That brings us up to Mr. Flynn. Why are you running for City Council?
Hello, thank you, Mary. Thank you, the League of Women Voters and everyone else attending. My name is Tim Flynn. I'm running for City Council at large. Reason why I'm running for council is, first of all, I'm not a politician. And everybody up there in the council right now, they're politicians. If they don't say they're politicians, they're certainly acting like it. And it's primarily partisan, and this should be a nonpartisan role. They care about their platform. They have a nice little long agenda and a nice little oligarchy in which they have been holding secret meetings, special meetings, and go ahead and vote on everything and anything without the opinions of people, without listening to their voices. Anybody that says that they care about your voices, Dubuque, they don't, because they have proven it. And it wasn't up until now, this year, that I came up with the idea that everybody's voice needs to be heard. So as a council member, I'm going to take a consensus of every issue that comes up. I'm going to take a poll. I'm going to talk to people, and I'm going to get their ideas. I'm going to get their opinions, and I'm going to get their yay or nay on issues. And then I'm going to take what the people say, and I'm going to go to the council, and that's how I'm going to vote, because we should be working for the people as a council, and it shouldn't be the other way around. And right now, They're not working for the people.
Thank
They're
you,
working for
Mr.
themselves.
Flynn. Okay, thanks, Mr. Flynn. Next, Ms. Freiburger. Michaela Freiburger?
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Yes, this is Michaela Freiburger. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you again for this opportunity to share a little bit about myself and to be sharing things that I am passionate about. And I have a proven track record to talk about. But first, a little bit about me. As a 32-year-old single mother of a 7-year-old, and my dad is an elected official as a Soil and Water District Commissioner, and my mom is the Vice Chair of the Board of Health, I continue to find ways to integrate what I do as my profession, as well as my volunteer opportunities, to make a better, viable, just, and equitable community for all. Number one, I am work for the Dubuque County Energy District as a program coordinator. Meaning I'm built into sustainability, and I believe sustainability is the way the city of Dubuque should take our route. Additionally, I am a counselor with our Small Business Development Center. I'm integrated in not only new, but also existing businesses and expanding them into our community. I also work at a small business located centrally in our downtown historic district. And then finally, as my volunteer opportunity, I have been the chair of the Dubuque County Food Policy Council for the last 3 years. So 3 priorities I see our city taking shape, and as I've over the years developed relationships and connections with our constituents, I see that we need to be more proactive in our worker housing development, making sure it's healthy and just. We need to establish a city food resiliency or food policy council. We also need to implement, not just collect
Thank
data
you.
upon and make plans,
Thank
the
you, Ms.
50% by
Freiberger.
2030 community. It was community-led
you.
climate and resiliency action plan. Additionally, I have a track record of making sure that our
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Well, good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this together.
Couldn't she hear?
I've been on this council for 16 years. I'm not going to do any of those things that Mr. Flynn suggested. Our job on the council is to know more about issues than the citizens know. To try and ask everybody what they think about something and then vote on what they think is governing by soundbite, and that doesn't work. This is a republic, and it's a republic for a reason. You have a right to think, to know that we understand the issues that we vote on better than the average citizen reading a few paragraphs about it in the paper. We're reading pages and pages and pages of material, both pro and con, on most things that we vote on. And most of them come from our own thoughts and goal setting, which we just completed a month ago. I've been around Dubuque for my whole life. I grew up volunteering for children with special needs. I've been involved with Special Olympics for decades. I've been involved with Hills and Dales as a board member and a volunteer for decades as well, and many of the predecessor organizations. I worked in the fire department for 31 years. I was pretty innovative in getting our paramedic ambulance program going in the 70s and keeping it going through today, where they're just completing an accreditation process. So I'm proud of my work here. In a nutshell, working to maintain a safe community, working on COVID recovery, viable infrastructure, which is the foundation of a successful city, and sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Mikolakis, thank you.
I'm up.
Why are you running for city council?
I am running for city council because I believe that the city is in a dysfunctional way. The city is in a real bad way with contractors. They're in dire need of contractors. They don't treat their contractors right. They don't treat the people right. People that work for the city walk around on tiptoes, can't say nothing. They can't speak nothing. They're scared because they'll be fired if they talk. We got people in positions that don't belong in the position. We have CPAs, accountants running housing departments and lead programs that have no business being in there, that don't know their job. They don't know how to, we have inspectors that do not know their jobs. There's a lot of stuff going on in the city. We just need a lot of change. We need to get the right people in the right jobs in the right area. And I'm here for the working people. So whatever they want, that's what I'm going to be here for.
Thank you very much. For our next question, we'll start with Mr. Erba. And this is a pretty involved question. I'm going to list proposed possible projects for the city of Dubuque. And we'd like to know, the citizens would like to know, which 2 projects would you like to support and which 2 would you remove from consideration? All right, 5 Flags remodeling, Schmidt Island improvements, municipal airport expansion, a new downtown parking ramp, boat docks for large cruise lines, Southwest Arterial development, new ambulances at a new firehouse. Which 2 do you like and which 2 don't you like?
I'd say the only 2 that I do like are the new ambulances and the new firehouse, because those are necessities that I believe will help benefit the city as a whole. We need people to be able to drive ambulance trucks so that they can be able to get to Mercy or Findlay or whatever, hospitals are available, so that they can be able to treat the patients in a timely manner, and the new firehouse so that people can be, if their house is on fire, that people that can be rest assured that the fire department will arrive safely and put the fire out in time. But there are so many projects on that list that are really distractions from the real issues. Like, why don't we have projects that tackle climate change? Why don't we have projects that end homelessness? Like, economic development can't be the be-all, end-all of what goes on in this city. Like, if our constituents are suffering now, they need to have their issues fixed now. So I can honestly tell you that if somebody is watching this and they're most concerned about, a future free of climate change, or whether or not they're going to be living in decent housing, that most of the things on that list will not matter to them whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, same question.
Excuse me, Mary, would you do me a favor and read the question again, because there are several.
Yes, there are.
In a row.
The 5 Flags issues, Schmidt Island, the airport, the downtown parking ramp, boat docks for large cruise lines, development along the Southwest Arterial, ambulances, and a new firehouse.
Thank you. And it says that my picture's no longer there. I'm not sure if that's the case. It doesn't matter. Anyway, you can hear me speaking. And so I say yes to Schmidt Island and yes to airport, having been a pilot for many years, and no to the, it's not a no, it's a matter of having a large discussion about 5 Flags. And many people I know have voiced the opinion that it ought to be outside Dubuque, and we should focus on eliminating a great deal of traffic downtown and the parking meters and all that. And then the Southwest Arterial is another big discussion. But what I'll go with is the positives. And Schmidt Island is half there. There's a concrete pylon with a Huey Cobra on it, and that indicates the helicopter that, it was the destructive device used in Vietnam. I suggest, and I have available, another Huey for another pylon that is a medevac helicopter that presents the balance. We have the destruction, and now we need the balance of peace, which the Red Crosses do. And of course, the airport, I visited the airport when they had a presentation of what is ahead, and it looks spectacular. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Resnick?
Thank you very much. Well, I tell you what, whoever made that list made a great list of very important projects. And this is a question that's really hard to answer. First of all, 5 Flags. Since 2014, and even before that, since my early days on the council, I've talked about Five Flags and how we need to come up with a workable solution for all our citizens there. And we've talked and talked about it, and we've got some passionate citizens on all sides of this. It's going to come down to the referendum. We need, the job is to educate our community and really answer their questions, and then get those questions out there, and then have a referendum. And I will go with the people on that, of course. So Schmidt Island, the development is incredibly important in many ways, economically, but it's a beautiful place, and we got to get people on there. It's underused. Airport, well, why would we turn this down when 95% of the cost is federally funded? This is important for our future. Parking, we're obligated to do that. It's part of a deal. We don't pull back on what we've agreed to do. City of Dubuque follows through with our commitments. The boat dock is done. Parking, I talked about. Southwest Arterial, very important area for growth. And the firehouse, we're going to get one, and it's in the works. We're planning about the best time to do it. So that's my answer for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn, what's your answer?
First of all, I already took a poll, and a small one, and the majority of people, overwhelmingly, around an average of 9 to 2, say no ramp. They don't want it. It's too expensive. And then they went ahead and did a contract anyway on it because, God forbid, they won't go to the people and get their consent first. They just move right along with their own plans. So that's a big no, since the people don't want it, and they understand well about the ramp. I think we need to finish the Southwest Arterial development only because it helps the traffic flow, especially with the trucks coming through. The trucks with supplies and everything helps get from one side of town to the next a lot better. And I would say the ambulance, but not so much the firehouse, because I already talked to a couple firefighters, and what they really need is personnel and equipment more so than a firehouse. So I'm going to listen to the firefighters because they deserve the best. And if they tell us they want equipment and they need more personnel, then we need to start hiring firefighters and promoting to get those jobs and get more personnel there, because that's what they need the most. So they should be given what they want. They deserve the best.
Thank you. Ms. Freiburger?
Can you hear me okay? I switched over to a phone call.
Yes, we can.
Hello? Thank you. So I believe that all of these conversations, number one, some of them are still in the works, and those are things that as I become a city council woman, I will have to help to think creatively and think viably for the future. There are contracts that are in place, and so I do recognize that I can't take them off the table. I do have to say also that when I work downtown, I also play downtown. I see just the amazing abilities that Five Flags has to help grow a viable community, not just within our downtown region, but also our west side as well. Whether it's hotels and us really tapping into that hotel motel tax and our Travel Dubuque, being able to grow programming to bring other people here, whether they want to stay or they just want to come and play. I see that is a great opportunity, but I also agree with looking at the total package, answering all questions, and putting it up for a referendum. The people do need to have an ability to vote. Additionally, I believe that we need to really focus on helping keep our communities safe, and whether that is through not just completing a study to find out exactly what the needs are of a community as it relates to a firehouse, which I do live in Ward 1, and I do understand the needs from Ward 1 to have an additional firehouse built on the west side of our city. But I also look at things like the municipal.
Thank you, Ms.
airport
Freiberger.
expansion.
Thank you for your response. Mr. Jones?
Thank you.
Well, it's an interesting list because 4 of them are in progress, whether we like them or not, and 3 of them are priorities recently identified by the City Council, so they're going to happen as well. First one you mentioned is Five Flags. Our job as a City Council is to define what the project could be, what the project will cost, and ask the voters if they want us to do it. Just that simple. How do we get it? A citizen committee, a citizen commission that's in charge of Five Flags operations brought us a unanimous proposal from them. And we've heard from lots and lots of citizens that are for this and lots that are not for it. It's got to go to referendum. That's the only way to do a project this big. And our job is to get it to referendum and then do what the people say. Schmidt Island's in progress. Schmidt Island is a place of opportunity. We're not going to be able to do something that magically creates the next step at Schmidt Island, but some enterprise could come and say, hey, I want to build a hotel and I want it to be pretty nice and I want it to face the river and I want it to be on Schmidt Island. We'll talk. We'll see if we can put together a development agreement to make something like that happen. But we're kind of waiting for the opportunity. We've got the opportunity. We're waiting for the knock. The downtown parking ramp is a contract in place. It's required by two of our largest downtown employers, and we got a lot of people downtown that are waiting for it. Boat docks are going to pay for themselves pretty easily. Southwest Air Trail Development's not about the road, it's about what happens alongside the road.
Thank you. Mr. Mikalakis.
Well, yep, it's a real interesting list. It's right with everybody else says, and you know, the top priorities, like Rick already said, they're already in progress, so there ain't really too much. But I think the firehouse and the ambulance are probably one of the top lists, in my opinion. That would be most important to the people. And then, you know, making the airport more accessible. But like he said, everything's in place already, so hopefully it all goes through.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Miller, you're going to start with the third question, and the
Mary.
citizens.
Mary, I think you forgot me.
I'm sorry, Brett. Thank you for the team.
I remembered
because
for you.
This is, thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Here's the thing about being a high-functioning city. We can actually multitask a lot of these things. We can do a lot of the things on this list at the same time that we address climate change and fight that, the same time that we address housing and homelessness, and the same time that we address childcare and other community amenities that we need. We can do all these things, and we have to. This is who we are. We're one of the largest cities in Iowa, and we need to make sure that we can function in a way that provides the services and the things that our citizens need. So as far as the list goes, I'm not going to repeat a whole lot of what I've heard, but you know, we do have three of these things especially that have been prioritized, and we've agreed as a council. You know, between the seven of us, I didn't agree with everything that everybody else said, but we came to the priorities together. I completely agree with Mr. Jones. Five Flags needs a discussion. We have to have the community discussion about this. And that's what I've stood by for the entire time that we've been talking about it. It's unfortunate that COVID happened and caused that to be taken off the ballot referendum, because we need to be able to talk about it. The one thing that I will say that I've publicly already stated that I'm not ready to support is the new downtown parking ramp. I disagree with my council colleagues on this one, and the reason is I don't see good evidence right now that we need a new ramp at this moment. We did make a deal. We need to stand by that deal, but we also need to bring everybody back to the table to make sure that we have the right data to tell us we need this and we need it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, is there a way to maintain an affordable cost of living in the city of Dubuque? And what would you do?
Now, I have a technical question, Mary. I can't see myself on the screen. Is that because you have a button that you could push that would allow that? And that leads to the question, in fact, is all of this being recorded so that I can have family and friends visit the city website and view it or hear it?
Yes. It'll be on the city website.
Okay, good. That's all I needed to know. And beginning the answer, I begin again. I repeat what I said about there being an office for mayor with staffing so that these issues can be addressed. And specifically, now you had said cost of living, or you had said minimum wage, which was, can you repeat the question?
Yes. I think citizens are concerned about the cost of living in Dubuque and being able to afford to live here. And how would you maintain that?
Well, I think we can certainly maintain it with what we're doing now. But what's really the problem is that these are serious COVID times, and these COVID times may last for a very long time. And so we have to focus on what we're doing from the standpoint of cost of living, but we also have to focus on helping the people who are at the lower end of the spectrum. That's the complicated part, because throughout the country there are millions of people who are about to be evicted, and certainly that makes things complicated. So I'm hoping that the city folks can connect with the state folks, can connect with the national folks, and make sure that there's some sort of wage at all. And then as we succeed with that, then we'll move toward a more even-keeled time as COVID goes away. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Mr. Resnick?
Yes, so first of all, Dubuque is one of the most affordable cities around. Now, that being said, I haven't always had an easy time, and a lot of people haven't. I'm in the service community, education, nonprofits. So what my family and I have had to do over the years is do a lot of the work around ourselves. Never turn down a job if you're a musician, and be smart. And that's what I think the city of Dubuque is doing, and a lot of citizens are doing that very same thing. When my wife and I came 40 years ago or so to Dubuque, we noticed that there were people taking care of their homes in every neighborhood. Not from where I was originally from. We had wished that for our community. But in Dubuque, there is a sense of pride here, and that's what we need. So I also like to say wages are rising because this is a great place to live, and we attract jobs. We attract employers. And so wages are rising, and we need to really do a good job recruiting a workforce. And then the other things my family has done, and I suggest others do, is get to know your neighbors. Because our neighbors have helped us in so many ways, and we've helped them when we can.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
I hate to say it because I don't want to sound like I'm favoring a candidate or anything, because I'm not. But I actually agree with everything Mr. Resnick just said. We are a very affordable city to live in. I've been here. I'm a native Dubuquer, 52 years. And I'll tell you what, I've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly financially in Dubuque. We've had hard times and we've had good times. And so here's the thing. I don't think it is a good idea. I believe in social justice. I believe in programs, but I don't believe in keeping people reliant on big government programs for an X amount of time. I believe it's just until they can get off their feet. And right now we are seeing some of the most highest paying open jobs in Dubuque that we have ever seen, ever. Some of these jobs that I looked for back in the day, I couldn't even find them. And now you got Mighty M and Adams, all of them, they are begging to get people in. If you walk in, you'll have a job and you'll be getting paid like $20 to $30 an hour to start. So I think if we stay vigilant and hang in there, and if people look for these jobs, because there's plenty of them, these $20, $30 an hour jobs, I think they'll be okay. But like other than that, yeah, we're still pretty affordable compared to the rest of Iowa.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Ms. Freiburger?
Thank you for the question. So as it relates to the cost of living, number one, now is the time for us to take a step for my daughter's future and for my future. We need to build upon these private and public partnerships that are already established to build a collaborative future for all. We need to empower our neighbors, not just talk with them, find out what's right in their minds for how our city should look, but we need to empower them to also be part of our changes and to build a better future for tomorrow. Additionally, we need to not just collect data, we also need to, as a city, move forward to implement. Right now, I'm currently engaged across a variety of not-for-profit sectors, and I really find it important to integrate the public just as much as the private partnerships, especially to build a cost of living that is not just for one sector, middle class of our community, but also for those who are often underrepresented at all of our tables and those who can well with you. So in hearing stories from our neighbors about hard times and troubles, it was mentioned right now, we have many neighbors facing evictions. That's why I built my 3 goals as a city councilwoman: to be proactive for worker housing, building a city food and resiliency or food policy council, and finally, really working on climate change and tackling it through that 50% by 2030 Community Climate and Action Resiliency Plan. Again, I'm doing this because I'm 32. I will see the benefits of all of these adaptations to our community to help build a more affordable cost of living and
Thank
to make
you.
it so we can continue to
Thank
bring
you.
professionals. Thank you.
You bet. Mr. Jones.
Well, it's a challenge. For some years now, I've been saying that in the next decade, we're going to find out if capitalism really works. We're going to find out how badly the fast food joints want the burgers flipped because everybody's having challenges finding employees. So what are the reasons for that? I don't think it's that unemployment is such a great deal. I think that it's because a lot of people are trapped by circumstances that they can't possibly control and can't break free from. Healthcare is a big one. We still got a cliff in our state Title 19 coverage. If someone starts to make too much money, they suddenly lose their health care, and now they're way in the hole from where they were last week when they didn't have a job. That's got to get fixed. That's just got to get fixed. It's keeping a lot of people out of the workforce that we need in the workforce. And the other big one we've identified is childcare. If you're a single parent and you've got childcare obligations, you can't join the workforce until you figure out what to do with the child. And we need these talented people in the workforce, and we need them to be able to afford to do it. If you're making less than you're paying for your childcare, you're not going to go to work. That's pretty simple too. So we've got to make that work, and it's got to be affordable for people. And either the wages are going to have to be high enough to support the childcare, or the childcare is going to have to be inexpensive enough to support the wages. Lastly, transportation is a barrier for a lot of people. If you can't get to work, you can't go to work. About that simple. So we're trying to improve our dual system to get people around town and other backup systems to get them there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mikolakis?
Well, my personal opinion is I don't think we have a problem. I think everybody's, well, we do have a problem, I guess, but I think everybody, pretty much, if you're looking for a job, there's plenty of them out there. And where there's a will, there's a way. So keep it short and sweet. People are looking for work, they can find it, and if they want to make a living, they can do it. It's been done like that before we were born. It's going to keep on going that way after we're gone. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh?
Thank you. This is another thing that this past year has really shone a light on, really, is the fact that, we've been facing a reckoning with wages in the Dubuque area for a while. And it really came to light finally this year when it was fully recognizable that wages just simply have not been keeping up with other wages in the region, other wages across the country. And I think that's one of the things that definitely needs to be addressed. Now, that's a really difficult thing for a city government to address, especially in the state of Iowa. We can't do anything to be able to regulate that necessarily, but we might not necessarily need to either. We have partners within the community. This is the thing that the city of Dubuque does really well, is partners with other economic development organizations, other organizations in town that are there to try and raise the wages of workers and figure out how we can make that happen across the city. Another thing that I think is really important that we've really been working hard to address in these past 2 years is affordable housing. And that means housing across the the socioeconomic spectrum. So not just housing for people who are the poorest among us, but also housing for people who are just starting out in work, young professionals. We need housing that is affordable and comes in at all places throughout the city of Dubuque so that we can make sure that people have a place to go and a place to stay. The final thing is something else, again, that Mr. Jones brought up, is the idea of childcare. The city's working actively right now to partner with other organizations on childcare and addressing this need, and I think we need to continue to do that and focus on that for the next 4 and 5, 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Erba.
Could you repeat the question so that everyone at home remembers what the question was?
Yes, we've been talking about maintaining affordable living in Dubuque and how you would, what programs you would do to support that or what ideas you'd have.
Well, if we're going to talk about, living as a whole, I think that there are certain things that we could be able to do straight off the bat that make perfect sense. So, for example, the city of Dubuque is its own employer, so while we can't raise our minimum wage statewide, the city of Dubuque can be able to raise the base pay of its own employees to $15 an hour. So I think that's a no-brainer step forward in that regard. But when it comes to housing, like if the landlords had their way in this city, then the rental units in this town would be, only open to a vanishing few, because we're not just talking about, the cost of rent here. We're also talking about the quality of housing. So when you're looking at, apartments that are $400, $500 a month, think about how badly in condition they are. I had a studio apartment on Central Avenue several years ago that cost me $350 in rent. I got bed bugs 3 times from that apartment. I'm still traumatized by the bed bugs that I got from that apartment. So the place where I'm living at now, in 15th Street Apartments, it has been a godsend, not just for me, but for dozens of other people who have moved in there, and that's where we need to place our chips in that basket. We need to be able to allow nonprofits to build affordable housing that can cater to people who have been shut out by the ruthlessness of the housing market because of our landlords. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Resnick, this next question you can start with.
Is Mr. Miller going to answer the question?
Did you do?
Oh, he started. Yes, he started.
He did. All right, so I better pay attention to this question. I'm ready.
Okay. Because the Iowa legislature ended backfill payments to local governments, what does that mean for our property taxes? What can you do as a mayor to make up for those missed funds?
Well, I tell you what, the citizens around here, they pay. They're going to make up, I'm afraid. As mayor, I know who pays the bills around here, and it's our citizens, not the mayor for sure. But as far as backfill payments, just a brief talk about that a little bit. We had an agreement with the state of Iowa. They're going to attach another tax. They're going to our folks, but because of that, they're going to backfill the loss that we had to our community. That was the promise. But not all politicians hold to their promises, and they feel that if they just wean us off of those backfill payments, that we'll be fine. So Mr. Van Milligan has talked about a plan that he has that as the money is not backfilled, so as we get less and less money from the state of Iowa that they agreed to give us, because it's right, it's just, that he has a way that we're going to have to adjust taxes, fees, and other things as far in the housing department. A lot of different things are going to happen because of that. Now, I have talked to legislators, and for the most part, they've been supportive in a general way, but when it came to a vote, Dubuque lost that one.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn. Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Yes, we're talking about the backfill payments and how to make up those missed funds.
Well, that's going to be difficult. And I don't know where we stand as far as federal funding and all that either, right at this moment. But I will say this for one is it's probably going to fall on the taxpayers once again, and we're probably going to see, a big raise in property taxes anyway. I, as a council member, would vote no every single time on a property tax raise. And I think the manager and the whole entire council needs to get together and they need to sit down and figure this out themselves. It's not one person that can figure this out. It's going to be a difficult task. And I know that for a fact, I was kind of not too thrilled finding out that they gave themselves a raise on the council, especially since I'm going to give my full salary back to Dubuque. But yeah, like I said, this is probably not a good answer for this because it's a difficult situation. And like I said, it's going to take basically a whole bunch of people to get together at a table and try to figure this out, try to figure out the solution. And here again is where you should involve the people and get ideas from the people, because the people, unlike what my opponent said, the people do know. They do know a lot. You don't know better. The council doesn't know better than the average citizen here. There's citizens here that know quite a bit. They're very intelligent, and they can come up with some probably better ideas than I can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flynn. Ms. Freiburger.
Thank you. So first off, I would like to say that I work for a not-for-profit myself. I know that there are a couple of council members that do that as well, and we recognize the value of our not-for-profits and our partners in our community to help to leverage those public dollars. So it's not just on us as a taxpayer to kind of offset those dollars. Additionally, we need to start thinking creatively, like our other cities that we partner with, that we meet at things throughout our community engagement opportunities, really just find a way to increase that opportunity. Additionally, I think that we are missing a conversation here. How can we create a broader tax base? We just talked about the cost of living. So when we talk about attracting more people to our community, that includes the cost of living. So if we can create kind of more of a well-rounded city, we will have an opportunity then to bring more people here, a larger tax base as well. And then additionally, I think it's really important that we recognize we have a large amount of American Rescue Plan dollars coming into our community. And with those dollars, we have an opportunity to leverage those dollars with our taxpayer dollars and offset that lack of funding that we will be having due to the lack of the backfill payments coming from the state. So I think we need to be creative with our dollars. I think we also need to recognize that we can increase our tax base so we don't have to increase taxes for those residents who are currently residing in our community.
Thank you.
Put more people to work. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Jones.
Well, the loss of backfill was a challenge, and some people did sit down at a table, our finance manager and our city manager and our city staff, and they have a viable plan going forward to absorb that loss. And in fact, we were talking about that plan 3 years ago, that this was a possibility, and it came to fruition. This isn't the first time that we've had the state make a deal and then change their mind on it. We passed a constitutional amendment in the late 60s called Home Rule that gave cities and counties the power, and school boards the power to administer all things not addressed in statute in the Code of Iowa. And since then, there have been several laws passed that erode Home Rule. And there was an unfortunate Supreme Court ruling about 10 years ago that said, yeah, that's okay. It's not okay with me, but I don't get to be the guy that says that. It's a Supreme Court decision. Anyway, we've got a plan. Yes, it could impact property tax. I don't think it's going to cause us a great increase in property taxes, but it's going to cut into our ability to hold property taxes steady and to lower them, which is a thing that we kind of like to do. I'm not claiming to have superior knowledge to the citizens. I'm claiming to have subject-specific expertise when we study an issue for many, many pages before we vote on it, when we develop an issue. And we're always open to input all the time. These meetings are public, our phone numbers are published, and we'd like to hear from people.
Thank you. Mr. Mikolakis.
Well, I think he just said it all, didn't he? Everybody knows they're going to raise our taxes. So there you go. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. They're going to raise our taxes and everybody's going to pay more taxes. And that's that. Let's just keep it short and sweet. We all know they're gonna do it. Here we go again, right? Where'd all the money go from the casino, and what about the curbside recycling? We're supposed to lower taxes with all that stuff. Never once did I see my property taxes go down. Not once. Did you see your property taxes go down when curbside recycling came, or when the casinos came? Did your taxes go down? I didn't see them go down. So just another smoke in the wind. They're gonna raise their taxes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kavanaugh?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this was something that cities across Iowa saw coming for a number of years. I know that, we had local legislators who fought for this and keeping this in place to be able to assist with cities and keeping that deal, but it was something that the city has been planning for a number of years. And the first thing I want to say about it is any discussion of taxation is a matter of balance. Anytime we talk about taxing and budgeting, we're talking about how do we balance out the priorities that we have as a city and what people need here. So what is always the most important is what kind of a return are we going to get on any investment that we make of people's tax dollars? And that's the thing that's most important for this council to be thinking about as we are making these decisions on what are we going to do? Are we going to prioritize certain things over another? How are we going to balance this out when we know that we don't have the same amount coming from the state of Iowa? Second thing I want to say is we have incredibly talented professionals in our city finance department. I absolutely trust them to figure this out. And they're going to bring us some great proposals. And we're going to be able to put those in front of the public and be able to say, is this what we need to do? And you have every opportunity to have input on that. But we have people that are very high functioning in this government or in the city government that are going to be able to help. And the final thing is, this is a great example of why we need strong advocacy from our mayor. I serve on the Iowa League of Cities Executive Board, and that board has taken charge in making sure that we maintain home rule here in Iowa. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Erba?
Yeah, so I think the backfill tax issue is one where it's more of a how do we make up for lost revenue issue. And, last year when COVID was, completely dominating our conversation, we were in the talks about, what kind of major cuts would we need to put on our budget because we have to make up for the loss in revenue that COVID has rigged on us. But we got our COVID stimulus money from, the American Rescue Plan, and that has been a godsend. So we have, a bit of a safety net. But if we're going to have this ongoing issue, then we need to talk about which property taxes can stay, which ones need to be cut, which ones need to be raised. Personally, I think the business ones need to be cut because I like for small businesses to have a leg up, despite the fact that they would still pay the same rate as a business like Walmart or Target. But if there's any property tax that deserves to be raised up, it's multi-residential units because they can afford to pay that. The other thing I'd like to be able to propose for helping make up the lost revenue is revamping our licensing system. So if you're a business or a landlord and you make $100,000 or more in net profit in any given year, you present your taxes to the city, and if you make less than that, you're good to go. If you make more than that, you pay a small tax to renew your license. If you don't, it gets revoked, but at least you're giving back to the community instead of, sucking the character out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Fascinating conversations from all, and it just points to fiscal matters being so very, very complicated to those who are involved, but especially complicated for the citizens. The chamber sent us a questionnaire, and one of the questions was about the TIF. Let me read this, the tax increment financing. So there we have a situation. And gloriously, I was able to find a website which presented a meeting of the Cincinnati pro tem president and an advisor regarding TIF. And apparently there are two different types of TIFs. Anyway, again, I wish all of you good luck as we proceed with trying to resolve this. And as I say, what's really complicated is it's so especially difficult for the citizens to understand. So we hope that as you proceed until November, I guess that's the inaugural for the mayor and the others, that good luck in the future with that. And that's all I have to say. Other than to say that I was able to come to understand TIFs in a relatively short period of time. And I would say that points to the need to have a mayor's office that's separate with staffing, because I can certainly find wise advisors who are wise about fiscal matters. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn, this next question will start with you. The countywide land and water legacy bond issue will be on the November ballot. This bond issue hopes to raise $40 million for investment in land protection of water quality, natural resources, and outdoor recreation amenities. What is your position on this bond issue?
Something I got to look at. It does look promising because, when it comes to water and land, it's a no-brainer. It's very important, especially with, clean water and everything else. But here again, this is my whole platform is, even though I am for something, even though something sounds promising, I'm going to go out by foot or by telephone, and I'm going to talk to the people of Dubuque because it's their city. There's 58,000, and the council's supposed to represent them and work for them. And so the job of a council member, which when I get to council, that's exactly what I'm going to do, is I'm going to talk, have conversations with people, maybe even town halls about these subjects and see how they feel about it, see what they think. And like I said, if I get an overwhelming majority, that's how I'm going to vote on the council. I'm going to vote for what the people feel, not just what I feel.
Thank you. Mrs. Freiburger.
This is Michaela here. Still, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So growing up, we didn't go to Disneyland. We went to see Ray Archuleta's speech. And that means that I grew up in a conservation-focused household. My dad is the Soil and Water District Commissioner. And so with the Food Policy Council, we continue to find ways to be innovative with private and public dollars. Now, this is county-wide for the conversation as it relates to land and legacies. Number one, look at all of the amazing things our B Branch Coalition has done, and that is leveraging city, county, and private partners to build something better for our community, not just within the city, but also surrounding our city as well. Additionally, we have a water district that continues to meet, and we are finding that our state is not putting dollars towards programming like they used to. So we, if we would like to attract more people who are young professionals, need to recognize that this is a great opportunity to invest in our trails, our parks, our byways, to make it so transportation with something as simple as complete streets is an integral part of our expansion as a city, to be more green, to implement part of our 50% by 2030 climate and action resiliency plan. Additionally, this is an amazing opportunity for our community to, number one, vote this upcoming ballot on November 2nd to say yes or no to move forward with investing. So while I see this as an opportunity
Thank you
to
very
raise
much.
fundraising,
Mr. Jones?
Well, fortunately for Mr. Flynn, he won't have to make those 58,000 phone calls because this is a ballot initiative that the Dubuque County supervisors are bringing to the November 2nd election. So everybody in the county will have their opportunity to vote yes or no on it. The City Council has not taken a position on this. It hasn't been asked of us, so I don't have an official position. This citizen is going to vote for it. It's going to cost me a little tiny tax increase and give me and my family and my successors and the children of their children lots of opportunity to explore the outdoors and get to know their county. It's a pretty neat proposal. But again, that's not an official City of Dubuque position. That's a Rick going to go vote for it position.
Thank you. Mr. Mikalakis?
I'm all for it. I
Amen.
like the ideal. I think the people should like it's up to them though, but yeah, I'm for it. I think it's a good ideal. I'm voting for it. I'll invest in it. I'm good to go with it. Hope the rest of the people are. Short and sweet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kavanaugh?
Yes, thank you. So I think it's interesting that the word legacy is in there because when I see a word like that, I always think about my kids. I think about what kind of a world do we want to leave for them? What kind of a place do we want, my grandkids to be able to grow up in? And, when it comes to our land and water, I mean, what is Dubuque without the beauty that we have around us? What are we without the land and the water and the legacy that we can leave for our children in that way? So I have to repeat for what Mr. Jones said once again. I have to repeat that this is not an official city council position at all because we haven't been asked. But I do plan to vote for it. And I plan to vote for it because the land and the water in Dubuque is what keeps me calling this place home. It's what drew me back, and we spent some time in St. Louis as a family. And when we came back to Dubuque in 2008, it was the beauty here that is what keeps me going every single day and keeps me wanting to serve this community along with the people who live here. So I think that this is something that, once again, it is a fully democratic process, a complete ballot initiative, so everybody gets a chance to think about it. And I hope that people do their homework. I hope that people learn, from both sides what the reasons for this are and what the reasons against it might be. But when I think about the possibilities, it's definitely something I want to support personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Erba.
My support for this bond issue is unequivocal. I was actually at one of the meetings to brainstorm how do we, get the outreach out for this bond issue. And I should remind everybody who's in this room and who's watching this on their televisions and on their computers that we live on stolen land. The Native Americans who lived on this land prior to the European colonizers were driven out, and through colonization, the environment was degraded to a significant degree. And this bond issue represents one of our rare opportunities to show that even though we are not responsible for the decisions by our ancestors, we have an opportunity now to respect the land that we are now living on. And it doesn't do everything. Will it, return the environment to where it was? No. Will it clean the Mississippi River? Not really. But $40 million, I'll take that. And as anything that will help the planet heal, I'll take that, because we are at a time now where we need to be as environmentally, proactive as we've ever been. Because if we don't get our act together when it comes to things like climate change, we will lose that window of opportunity, and human civilization will be unrecognizable in decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
I'll take what Mr. Erba and run with it. It's brilliant and it's true. We are in big trouble, and if in fact we run out of time, then we may not exist at all, which is heartbreaking. But now let's jump to mother and father nature. I think it takes two of them. And I zipped from the city to the Heritage Trail on the bicycle, and it's magnificent, of course. And Sir David Attenborough is the man who put together the Planet Earth series, 11 episodes, most expensive documentary the BBC ever made. And he has a new book that's very short. And in the book, he uses the word rewilding. And that verb means it is a cure for climate change. It's actually, it's a multitude of steps that we can take to assure that we last longer. And so whatever's planned to ensure that there's more greening and more saving of the land and especially the water, it's grand, and I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Resnick?
Yes, thank you. So I think it's interesting that everybody seems to be wholeheartedly for this, even though we don't know really what it is. So who could be against land and water quality? Well, I'm sure not. In fact, part of my platform is environmental vitality, and we need to repair, the environment. But let's look at this. What kind of bothers me is that it's $40 million, and there's really a lack of specificity about what this is going to be spent on. So how is the money going to be spent? For what? And right now, don't worry, it's going to be great. Any money spent on land and water quality is great. Well, I need some more information. This wouldn't fly for the city of Dubuque because where's the transparency? This is just a generic plan so far. I'm looking for more details. So I'm going to be looking for more information. But I did want to say that, as Mr. Miller just said, whatever is planned, well, he's for it. Well, I need more information. So I'm known as an independent thinker and fiscally responsible, and this has hit me in both of those areas. $40 million. It's got to be great. What is it for? I like to know, and I would love to support this if we get some information that says this is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Freiburger, we'll direct the next question to you for your first response. The city recently adopted an equitable poverty reduction and prevention plan. It's designed to address the determinants of poverty within our city and society to reduce, alleviate, and ultimately prevent poverty in our community. What do you think it'll take to make this succeed?
Ms. Freiberger is no longer on the call.
I didn't understand that. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Freiberger had to leave the call, so we will start with Mr. Jones.
Well, this is probably the hardest question that anybody's going to get asked tonight. It's a thick plan, it's a comprehensive plan, and it's an enormous, enormous problem. We have learned that people in poverty in Dubuque are frequently in worse poverty than they would be in other cities. That's a problem. That's one we're going to have to own and we're going to have to fix. We're going to need some real goals to find our way, and we're going to need a lot of partnerships. Now, we've got lots of things that work. The challenge is they work pretty slowly. We've got a partnership right now with the Dubuque Dream Center. They can show us outcomes. They can show us that their input is kids that are struggling with school and their output are kids that are catching up. That's fabulous. We've got the Fountain of Youth who's trying to tackle generational poverty piece by piece, and we're helping them do that a little bit, and that's a huge piece. But when you start talking about a safe community, what leads people to crime? I'll tell you what, if you've got kids and you can't feed them, you're going to find a way. And maybe it's not a legal way, but you're going to have to find a way. If we can find a way to break that poverty cycle, we can reduce nonviolent crime and some violent crime, and we can get people on a better path. And there are so many directions that this goes. One of the simple things we're working on is what happens when you get arrested for something little, and it grows because you can't make the court date or you can't post the bond or whatever, and all of a sudden you're sitting in jail and out of work. How do we find a different path to make it a better day for you?
Thank you. Mr. Mikolakis?
Well, when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot. I believe poverty is a choice in a lot of situations it ain't. But if you choose to rise up out of poverty, there's plenty of help out there. And I believe that Dubuque's on the right path. If they want to help people rise up out of poverty, I think we can do it. But we all got to join together, and if people want help, I think we should be here to help them. That's just where I stand on it. So, I wish them all the best of luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kavanaugh?
All right, thank you. Yeah, this is a major priority of mine, personally, I know, as a council member. And the thing about it is when you look at poverty within a community, it is a weight that drags down all of us. A lot of times when I'm talking to people about the Equitable Poverty Reduction and Prevention Plan and anything we might try to do in Dubuque to address poverty, it does seem to come off as people tend to think that this is just a personal problem, that it is something that people need to address personally, and it's not something that we need to look at from any sort of standpoint that matters to the rest of us. And I completely disagree with that. I think that poverty for any of us is a weight on the rest of us, and we need to address it as a community. I actually think this plan is one of the most comprehensive quality plans that I've ever seen. Now, I'm a social worker. I've worked in areas of very high poverty. I've worked with people who are experiencing poverty. It is a plan that covers all the bases. And what is it going to take for this to succeed? Well, it's going to take some time, but at the same time, it's going to take real investment. And I do think that we can do that. And I think it's part of our economic development plan. We have to make sure that we are addressing poverty in Dubuque in a very real and tangible way. The first step is going to be we're going to know what the problem actually is in gathering the data that we can, now that we have an office set up just for this purpose and for being able to address this. So it's going to take partnerships, but we're going to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Erba?
I think I might be the only person sitting at this table that actually lives in poverty. I have lived in poverty ever since I graduated from college. And I can tell you what, poverty is not a choice because ironically, I learned about this as a student from Mr. Kavanaugh's social work class, and I'm surprised you didn't bring this up. One of the reasons that a lot of people are stuck in poverty is because of something called the benefits cliff, which is where if you make so much money, your benefits will drop like a brick. So if you are receiving subsidized childcare, if you're receiving Medicaid, if you're receiving any kind of, means tested, benefits from the state, the county, the federal government, et cetera, like if you end up making more than what is acceptable to receive those benefits, then you're kind of up, the creek without a paddle. So how we can be able to tackle poverty is through several areas. Obviously raising wages, but we also need to get people in good jobs. And I have a plan that will prioritize hiring to fill up the city positions with people who have been in long-term unemployment, 6 months and longer. How do we tackle with housing? We start a public housing initiative where we can be able to put people with a roof over their heads and get them out of, homelessness and the rooflessness of the housing market. But we really need to open our eyes and see that poverty exists before we talk about it.
Thank you. Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller?
Yes. Now it said I'm unmuted. So if you could start the clock again, it took a couple of seconds. In any case, I'm blessed beyond measure to have weekended in San Diego when I was working for my last airline of 7. Don't get me started on companies folding. In any case, walking through the city, and especially at dusk, there would be people with their sleeping bags lined up perpendicular to the street, and they would leave enough space for people to walk beneath their feet because the heads were at the building. And there would be 20 or 30 on some of the blocks. It was astonishing. My cousin's in Portland, and they drove to an area where it was just jammed with tent city folks. There were hundreds of them. So it's everywhere. It's heartbreaking. And in good times, it's still complicated. But with COVID ravaging the citizenry, it's horrific. So I'm optimistic because I hear the folks who are Mr. Kavanaugh, Mr. Jones, and folks who are in the system now, and I'm greatly appreciative of their very optimistic outlook regarding Dubuque being a city that can pull this off and can actually proceed with developing procedures that work. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. This poverty reduction is a council goal, and I am pledged to follow through. I think this is a great thing. I mean, we pay taxes here in Dubuque. The main reasons we do, police and fire, we want a safe city, parks, streets, infrastructures, and services to our citizens. Well, for some people, the Park Service is the most important thing they do. But for others, the most important thing we can do is have an office that we can identify an office for people to go to help with their personal situation with money, and it's not uncommon. That's what we've lacked. a place to go where we can say, well, here's our partnerships with the state and federal authorities and nonprofits. You come to us and we're going to help you. We're going to, if this is a hand up, and if they want to be a member of a diverse workforce, I'm all for it, and we need to have this happen. The other thing I would like to talk about is by building our entire community financial strength. That helps everyone. We just got a Moody's report where we have a better rating, so it lowered our water costs by $5 million. So that's going to help everybody, people with more money and people who could use that money they saved for paying for groceries.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Well, Mr. Erba, I know poverty. I've known it. I've been there. I've done that. And I still do it. I'm on a fixed income right now. My daughter's full disability. She's on Medicaid. I'm on Medicaid. But the whole thing is I'm also on a VA disability, too. The whole thing is with the poverty reduction, okay, I'm all for safety nets. I'm all for giving certain handouts, but for temporary, because we need to actually create programs that are going to lift people up, that are going to give them incentives to get off the big government programs, because they should not be reliant on government, because it seems to me a lot of politicians, a lot of socialists in this country want people on big government programs indefinitely. Well, Dubuque, Iowa, lots of businesses out there are willing to get you out of poverty. They've got $20, $30 an hour to start jobs, and we need to encourage people to get out there and get those jobs, because as long as they're there, and they're there, there's quite a few of them, that's the best route to go, because $20 or $30 an hour jobs will get you out of poverty. You just got to have the incentive to get out and do those jobs. They're all out there right now. Now is the time. And so, like I said, if we find good balance between a certain level of government programs, but not permanent, not keeping them on, giving them incentives to get out there and get hand-ups, not handouts, and get these jobs that are out there,
Flynn?
there's going to be a lot less people in poverty.
That's true. For the next question, we'll start with Mr. Mikolakis. And the questioner wants to know how the city plans to improve low-income housing opportunities in Dubuque, and what ideas do you have?
Low-income housing. That is a big, big issue right now, because there is a lot of people not doing the housing vouchers anymore, a lot of renters. And just like I said before, it's hard to deal with the city, with their new housing director and the new inspectors that they have. It's hard to keep the houses in the perfect shape that they want them to, because of the renters. They don't take very good care of it. And then it takes a lot of money to keep those houses up. So I don't know. I think the housing market's going to keep going backwards. I wish that we could make it go forward, but they need to lighten up. The city needs to lighten up on some of the housing so that we can get more people to get back on the housing, to let people in housing, if that makes sense. So it's not going to happen. It's going backwards, and it's been going backwards. Nobody even wants to put their houses on housing. And it's all because the city has too much high standards. It's just not going to happen. The people are in an uproar about it. That's one of the reasons I'm sitting here. So I don't see it happening. Not right now. Maybe that's why I'm here. Hopefully we can change things. We need to get the right people doing the right job. We don't have that we don't have that here. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh?
Yes, thank you. So it's another important goal of mine, to make sure that we have housing that's not only affordable, but also safe. And I think that There are a few things that I think are positive developments in the last year or two. One is we've begun the process, at least attempted to begin the process of moving a lot of the housing options out of the areas of concentrated poverty in Dubuque. This is very important. Right now, most of the housing that is available to people who have very low incomes actually exists mainly in my ward, in the 4th Ward, and is concentrated in the downtown area. We need to make sure that people have options outside of that, to be able to have options for all the other amenities that are in the city, because as was pointed out earlier, transportation is often a barrier. We need landlords to accept the housing choice voucher. Housing choice voucher is the best way for people to access housing when they don't have the money to do so themselves. And when we don't have enough landlords who are allowing people to come in with a housing choice voucher and be able to live there, then we have a problem. As of right now, only 33% of landlords do that. This is why I voted for a source of income ordinance, but why I'm also very open to discussion with landlords to make sure that we can move this forward and actually provide the options for people when they need them. We still need to make sure that we're promoting development within the city, so that especially in areas of development where we have some areas that might be considered blighted, we haven't had a whole lot of development in the past. Those are areas of real opportunity that we can continue to promote in the city as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Erba.
Well, I live in low-income housing, and I got to tell you, the 15th Street apartments are so very nice, and it's not just because that they're brand new. That's been built for less than 2 years. It's the fact that they are committed to making sure that the building is well kept and, safe for all of its inhabitants. But unfortunately, I don't want to say it's a fluke, but finding those kinds of apartment buildings is like finding hen's teeth. Like, we've already gone over, how bad the housing market is because of the landlords, but we also need to think about how we're going to be able to try and transition our homeless population into housing that they can be able to afford. And I have plans to be able to start a public housing program where we buy, multi-residential buildings that are just gathering dust, and, the city operates them so that they can be able to keep people under a safe roof. I would also like to pass a program where we just buy no-frills houses off the market, and for homeless people who are just they're doing everything right, they just don't have a roof over their heads, they can keep a job, we put them into those houses and eventually get it to the point where they can own those houses. Homelessness is a policy choice, and every day that we have more than 200 homeless people in Dubuque is a stain on the city, and we have to erase that stain, and I plan to do so by 2030.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Well, first of all, I appreciate Mr. Erba's perspective on all of this, and I, in my personal life, have been short of money and in need of a space, and I know many people, particularly from when I was in the service, who back then were in extremis and got it resolved. So, number two, I appreciate Mr. Kavanaugh's explanation of the voucher system, which seems to be working, because he's there, he knows, and again, it's a positive, seems to be a positive method that seems to be working. And for my part, as I continue to campaign, I'll be listening to the citizens, many of whom are homeless. I know many homeless people, and I've met just the other day. Speaking of housing, I met a woman who said that she's been trying to get the landlord to fix a water problem for several weeks, and that's not working. So I'll do the best I can with the research, and I'll repeat that after listening to those who are in the system already, I appreciate what you're doing, and best of luck with this exceedingly complicated process. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. So this is a tough time for really anyone looking for housing. We just moved. It was very hard to find a spot. Very easy to sell a place, very hard to find, and it's more money. A lot more money. Now, what about, everybody's kind of there, but As far as low-income housing specifically, it's very important that we partner with nonprofits who will help us at this. We are partnering with the Bishop on the Bishop's Block. We've opened around 30 units, and they are all housing choice voucher. Because we're working with the city and other government entities, we can say, well, if you want to live here, or then if you want this business from people, then you need to accept the voucher. But the state of Iowa says we cannot have a source of income ordinance unless you work with the city or another government issue. So we have to deal with that. The other thing I'd like to mention quickly is that landlords are small business people, and everybody gushes about small business people except for landlords. Now, yes, there are a few problem landlords, maybe more than a few, but there are a lot of small business people that I know who are landlords, who do the absolute best. They need to feed their family and get what they get a fair deal for their property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn.
I'm sympathetic to people that are looking for housing that can't afford it. And God knows there's a lot of apartments and houses in this town that their rent is pretty high, actually. Now, I'm for partnering with the nonprofits and certain vouchers and all that. I think it's all great. And I think we could continue those kind of plans. I think with partnering with nonprofits and voucher systems and all that. But I want to say something about on the other end of the ones that are renting, the low-income people that are renting. Now, some landlords are bad, but some are good. And I've known a couple of the good landlords, and they took terrible losses having to redo their units because they were totally trashed by the people that had left, that had no respect for the apartments they were renting. They totally left the trash. And I think there should be some kind of clause for those getting low housing that states that they've got to leave those units in just as good condition as they came to those units with. So, in other words, you're going to lose your housing if you trash somebody's apartment that they own and causing them to have huge losses. Because this is the thing. It's fine, but...
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Mr. Jones.
Well, coincidentally, you do lose your housing choice voucher if you trash an apartment that is under the housing choice voucher program. So check that one off. This is an enormous problem. People need to have a roof over their head to be safe from what the world's throwing at them, to get mail, to function in society. And it's a real challenge if you're living on the streets trying to do something as simple as cash a check. So how do you fix it? And how do you balance the marginal apartment structure with marginal rent that somebody can marginally afford to be in? You can force that landlord to spend a lot of money and fix it up. And with that fix up comes a rent increase that now maybe the people that were occupying it can't afford it anymore. So it's a difficult balance. And the things that we're trying to do and the things that we've been very successful with are public-private partnerships. So a couple of the ones that come to mind are the HEART program through Four Mounds, where we acquire structures that are vacant or abandoned. Court will turn the property over to the city of Dubuque, and we'll turn it over to HEART. And they'll bring kids in who are marginal, about to fall out of the educational system, and teach them how to muck out old drywall, how to pull wire, how to do things that are going to solve their meat and potato problem for the rest of their life, give them some pride of accomplishment, and restore these structures to get them back on the market and back into the hands of low-income people to live in.
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh, we'll start with you for the next question. What's your position on the city's Resilient Community Advisory Commission's request to fund a climate action coordinator?
What do you mean by climate action coordinator?
I'm sorry,
I didn't ask
mean
that
by a
question.
climate action coordinator?
Oh, I'll get to you.
Okay.
Thank you. First of all, I think that it's really important that we listen very closely to whatever our commission members have to say. We do a thorough vetting process in getting people on city commissions and the boards and commissions here in the city, and we have some amazing people who are doing some amazing work. So I think it's important that we make sure we take whatever requests they have seriously and look at them very carefully. The bottom line is I would love to have the coordinator position. I think that it's something that I think it's something that we need. I think it's something that we want. And I think it's a challenging matter of balancing out what those priorities are. It's been said already that when we talk about sustainability, we talk about climate, we talk about the changing environment around us. This is a very serious issue that we need to start taking far more seriously than we have. We are running out of time, and if we don't address this more directly as a world, then we are in a serious problem. The challenge on a municipal level is that we are a small drop in the bucket, but the drop is an important one, and we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're addressing this issue adequately. So I support it, and I would hope that we're able to fund it. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Erba.
I'd love to be able to get this coordinator position because, the more armaments that we have, the better, but we can't just, sign on a new coordinator and think that everything's going to be fine. If the coordinator is going to tell us that the city needs to be more aggressive on fighting climate change, the city actually has to listen to that coordinator and act accordingly. Because the United Nations just came out with a report that said that even if every single country who signed on to the Paris Agreement follow through on their updated climate goals, the world will still barrel through the 2 degrees Celsius mark that we've set for ourselves, and we will end up in a Mad Max type of world, basically. And last month, there was another report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, that said that some of the effects of climate change are already baked in. They are irreversible. So like melting ice caps, raising sea levels, all of that stuff. And that is because of inaction. And as a millennial, we'll be stuck with the mess. And I am the one that has the strongest and most aggressive plans to fight climate change. I want us to get to at least net zero emissions by 2030. I want to install solar panels, replace outdated appliances, so many different things. But if the city doesn't listen to a new climate action coordinator, then what was the point of signing them on in the first place? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Erba. Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. It's so true. We are in trouble that is huge, and it's all that's happening is really incomprehensible. But we nevertheless have to take one item at a time and ensure that we yesterday should have begun addressing it. Actually, we should have begun the process of realizing what's happening and addressing it on the day after Rachel Carson's book, The Silent Spring, was published, and that was in the 50s. Well, here we are, and we really are in a small pocket of time. So good luck with everyone here who's in the room at the table, and good luck to Dubuque. And personally, I'd be glad to, for really a small amount of cash, I'd be glad to sign up to be in the position for, we can start with 2 weeks. And I can guarantee that by the time the 2 weeks are completed, we will all who listen will have a full understanding of where we are. And that's what's most critical, is being there. Where are we? Well, we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Resnick?
Thank you very much. And first, I'd like to thank all the city boards and commissions for the wonderful work that they do. Talk about some great input. And the Resilient Commission that commission is doing wonderful work we appreciate. So the questions of the Climate Action Coordinator. Well, I don't think it's right to say, I support it, and then hope we're able to fund it. I don't think that's leadership when you have to make choices. If we were going to fund this, then we need to bring it to goals and priorities and prioritize that. Right now, the city staff works to fund our goals and priorities. I checked again, and there's a lot of great projects here, but the city council did not prioritize that. Maybe it should have. And then we would absolutely fund that Climate Action Coordinator. But we've got other projects we're doing, and maybe that's going to be coming down the line. But the Resilient Commission, their Climate Action Coordinator was not prioritized, therefore it's not going to be funded. So we can get things done and not just hope that they get done. So I appreciate the work that our staff does, and they take our goals and priorities seriously. And as mayor of Dubuque, I will take our council priorities and goals seriously.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Well, I'm going to be the bad guy in the room now. I don't have enough time to go through the whole Green New Deal thing and the climate change thing. When it comes to things like this, though, regardless of how I feel, I would actually get a consensus from people to think to see how they feel on this. And I have had a lot of opinions on the Green Deal. The Green Deal to me is nonsense. Okay, I'm going to come right out and say it. It's nonsense. Okay, we've been around thousands of years. We've had change with our global system all that time. We've heard politicians like Al Gore be wrong and outward lie about it. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the Green New Deal, part of sustainable development. This thing is all about globalism. It goes back to the UN's global agenda. It's a farce. And I'll tell you what, if anybody needs to lead in lifting the carbon footprint, it's China, because they're twice as bad as we are. Asia's twice as bad as we are. The Green New Deal does not create job growth. It does not create economic growth. It creates nothing but economic turmoil in the end, and it will. Electric products are garbage, all right? Natural gas, all that stuff is still the most economic way to actually operate our fuel, heat our homes, and everything else. And so this Climate Action Coordinator, nah, I'm opposed to it. I think it's just spending more money on a position we don't really need. And if you want to get,
Thank you, Mr.
I don't have
Flynn.
enough time for the stats,
And
but I could prove.
And Mr. Jones?
I'm still spinning a little bit from that answer. We did not prioritize that, that's true. Among our goals, though, our City of Dubuque goals for 2020 through 2026 are sustainable environment, preserving and enhancing natural resources. So this does kind of fit that. We may see this in the budget process come January, February, March, and if we do, it'll receive the debate and discussion and public scrutiny that it deserves. We're not doing badly, we're not doing greatly in addressing climate change, but to think for a minute that it's not there, watching California burn and Canada burn, and watching storms and severity that are unprecedented historically, and to listen to our defense leaders saying that that's their biggest challenge in the U.S. Department of Defense is climate change, that's kind of a big thing. I think it's real. I think it's an imminent threat to civilization, and I think that people better start taking it seriously. I think that the City of Dubuque has taken it seriously. For one thing, we've got a Resiliency Advisory Commission, and we've got some very good thinkers on it. And by the way, let me put in a plug for commissions. The heavy lifting of city government is often done by the commissions. They're able to dig in detail to issues and give the city council reports to help us to understand and come up with a grasp of where we should be and where the community is on some of these issues. So their recommendation has some value to me. Not sure if it'll get funded this year.
Thank you. Mr. Mikalakis?
Well, I personally think it's something that we should look at. Climate control, I think it's an important issue. But I think if that's something that we should take to the people and let them vote on that for extra funding they want to do it or not. That's just my opinion on it. I think that that should go up for vote. It's a very controversial piece, and a lot of people would, you know, have their own views on it. So I say we put that up for a vote. That's just my opinion on it. But I would probably vote for it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Erba. This will be our last question.
Thank
All
you.
right. Apparently, Dubuque City's population has been stagnant, and the questioner wants to know what the city council could do to attract more citizens to Dubuque.
If they want a silver bullet answer, I'd say the first thing that we need to do is end discrimination against pet owners. Because if you look up Zillow or Remax or any, apartment website at any given time, you look through and there's rental unit after rental unit. The discrimination against pet owners by landlords is so commonplace that it almost has a chilling effect. Like, everywhere you go, it's no pets, no pets, no pets, no pets. Millennials own more pets. The percentage of millennials is the largest of any generation that are pet owners. And yet, if the reason that we cannot attract young people to come to our city is because if they're not able to buy a house, they are looking to try and rent an apartment. Well, where can you rent an apartment when you're not allowed to bring your pets in? And I don't know about you, but a lot of the friends that I have, they're responsible pet owners. And that's the first step. The second step will be, raising wages and, better housing, better neighborhoods and communities so that people feel safe to say hi to their neighbors and walk about and go attend events and stuff. But if you get down to the nitty-gritty of it, the best way to be able to attract a burgeoning, young professional population is to make sure that they can bring their pets along with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Am I there?
You're up.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. The stagnation. And really the answer has to do with all the answers that have been provided regarding how to make Dubuque a success, a complete success, specifically with, let me take a look at what I wrote to the chamber today. And I complimented the chamber on doing exactly what we all hope to do. The chamber is helping Dubuque become one of the healthiest, safest, and greenest cities in the country, perhaps the world, and certainly the state, and we're succeeding. So the way we have more people come to here is by taking care of the people who are here, by becoming that. And then, it's all well and good. It's important for the mayor to be able to convince businesses to come here. What's really important, though, is to have people here who are so pleased to live here for the reasons I mentioned, is that they contact all the people they know and say, I love living here. Why don't you come move here too?
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. So Dubuque actually recently has been growing, and I think it's a good sign for the future. First of all, how do we make it a great place to live, work, and play? When you answer that question, we're going to get more population because we do compete with other communities for people to come and live and work here. So we want vibrant neighborhoods across the city. Again, as I mentioned in another answer, there's a lot of community pride in every area. I go up to the north end, I go to the south end, all over Dubuque, and you can see the pride that many citizens have in their neighborhood. And we need living wage jobs, and that's helping, we still we need to work on our workforce and bring people in to get these great jobs, but that's going to be helpful. The other thing is really important, and that is to have a welcoming community to a diverse workforce. It's amazing. We can be welcoming for years and slowly grow, and then there's an incident or something, and then all of a sudden our reputation goes down and people are not sure if they'll be welcome here. But it's a mayor's job, as the gentleman said, and every citizen's job to make sure that this is a welcoming community, that we will welcome a diverse workforce to Dubuque, and we're glad you're here.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn.
I think Dubuque is still one of the best places to raise a family. We have a lot of good programs in Dubuque, and Dubuque is still probably one of the safest places to live, too. I think we could invest in a little more youth programs. And one thing I got to say, everybody that made Miracle Park happen in Dubuque for all children, even people with disabilities, I think that was a great thing, too. I see a lot of happy families going to that park and getting involved, and there's some they've got good leagues started over there, baseball leagues and that. And I think that's the best thing right now. I think Dubuque's doing really good that way, and I think if we can all continue to grow as a community when we support programs and leagues like that and continue doing what we're doing that way.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
You're welcome.
Quite some time ago, there was a question that listed 5 projects, all of which, I guess 7 projects, all of which are pretty good things, all of which, if you could do, would enhance community growth. Now, the metropolitan service area is in fact growing. Just prior to COVID, we had 60,000 people working in the Dubuque metropolitan service area. That's a way bigger number than ever before historically, and that's pretty good news. And it took a pretty good hit from COVID, but it's recovering fairly nicely. I talked in my first campaign 16 years ago about why everything matters in a community. Medical associates, Dubuque Internal Medicine, Mercy Finley, they can all put together the offer for the cardiologist to come to Dubuque. And it'll make sense economically and everything else. But what's going to close the deal is if the airport looks okay when they show up, if the peonies are blooming in South Grandview, if there's community theater that's alive and vibrant, if the arts are alive everywhere you look, if the symphony can play and if the schools can teach, if the parks are beautiful, those things close the deals. Maybe an enhanced 5 Flag Center closes the deal. Don't know yet. Got to take that to the people. Maybe a Schmidt Island that's spectacular and a lot of things to do closes the deal. The boat docks are going to bring a lot of people here with a lot of money, and some of them are going to get in their cars and come back. That's a real hard one to measure, but we know it happens. So we've got to keep it safe, we've got to keep it attractive, and we've got to remember that everything matters. When you tug on the tablecloth over here, a salt shaker way over there might tip over.
Thank you. Mr. Mikolakis.
Yeah, we need more opportunity for people to come here, more jobs. It's true. I'm all for that. We need more parks. We just need more places, more growth. Like a beach would be nice. I mean, we live on the riverfront, and the only beach that we ever did have was Camp 17, and they closed that down. Wouldn't it be nice to have a little beach somewhere off in one of the coves, fill it with sand, and just so kids can walk around, But we don't have that, and it's really disappointing. Cedar Rapids, Davenport's, all the other river towns all up through the Mississippi has a beach. Dubuque doesn't have one. It's sad, it really is. But you got to have places that people want to go and see, and you got to have opportunity for them to come and work, and they got to have the right jobs, the right housing, and they'll come. You build it, they'll come. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh.
A lot of agreement around the table on this one. I think it comes down to jobs, schools, and amenities. I think those are the things that really draw people into a community. And when you think about the types of things that are drawing people away from Dubuque, a lot of the times, it's the jobs a lot of the time, but it's also the amenity piece of it. So talking specifically about jobs for a second, one of the things that I think is important for us to work on in the city of Dubuque is being more paving the way in a better way for small businesses to be able to begin and last in Dubuque. I think we've done a pretty good job of inviting larger companies to Dubuque with lots of jobs at one time. But small business is the heart and soul of any community, especially a community our size. And we need to make sure that we continue to make it easy to do business here in Dubuque. So that's something that I think needs some work. Schools, continuing to advocate for the resources that the schools need. And when it comes to amenities, being able to somebody else said, live, work, and play. Basically, be a safe place to be a place where we have all the goods and services that people need. So all of those things are important, and I think all those things come through partnerships. We have to continue as a city government to not pretend we have all the answers, but be able to work with places like the Chamber of Commerce is one example. Another is to work with colleges to keep students here. It's a perfect place for people to come to Dubuque, fall in love, and stay. And then also to continue to bring large businesses that do have those 200 jobs at a time to be able to be here. We have to be attractive to industry as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry we've run out of time for new questions. At this time, we'll ask each candidate to take up to 2 minutes for any closing remarks, and we'll start with Mr. Kavanaugh.
Well, thank you. Well, I appreciate this opportunity tonight for everyone to hear from us. And, the idea was brought up earlier that, we need a mayor who not only ready to lead, but also has the experience to do so. And I couldn't agree more. I think that one thing that I'm looking for in our next mayor is someone who has taken the time and made the effort to experience our community in the fullest sense possible and really built relationships with community members through direct face-to-face contact. I personally have knocked on thousands of doors and talked to thousands of community members in our community. Spent lots of time doing it for one reason. And I always ask the same question if I get an opportunity, if somebody wants to talk long enough, I'll say, what do I need to be thinking about that's important to you? And that's an important question for any of us to be able to ask. And that's what I expect of our next mayor, is somebody who's going to make sure that they have the experience of what it means to live, work, and play in Dubuque. Somebody who has reached out and actually spent the time to do that and understand what's really going on. I also think it's really important that our next mayor isn't ready to settle for the status quo. I think it's time to hit the gas. I really do. I think that it's time that we are paying close attention to what it means to be the best. And that's what I'm shooting for. I've never been one for mediocrity. I really want us to be the best place to raise a family, the best place to work, the best place to live out our lives in whatever way we choose. And that means for anybody, anyone who wants to call Dubuque home. So that's what I'll continue to fight for, and that's what I'll continue to promise as your mayor. I'm going to be a mayor who will be reaching out to you directly, will be open to your thoughts, to understanding your story and what that is, and then working together to try and make those dreams a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Erba?
Well, I'd like to thank the League again for hosting this forum. It's a very educational event for the public to watch and to understand what is going on in our city. My name's Nino Erba, and I would like you to see these last words as the ethos of my campaign. I'm not running to toot my own horn. I'm running because I care, and I'm tired. I'm tired of waking up and having to put on a brave face every day because the magnitude of our issues is getting to the point where accepting the gravity of it would be so overwhelming that I would be stuck in bed from depression and anxiety. I'm tired of awaiting a future where my generation has to do all the heavy lifting because the adults that have been in charge before us for my entire life have shown, though, that they haven't given a damn about us. I'm tired of walking around in downtown Dubuque, meeting people, knocking on doors, and suffering from heat exhaustion because there are no trees in Dubuque, in downtown. The tree equity gap is staggering. But I believe that I'm uniquely qualified to be mayor because I have tons of lived experience that I think differentiates me from my, competitors. I have a permanent disability. I am part of the LGBT community. I have faced a lot of heartache and discrimination in my life. I have never had it easy. And that's why I think that I'm the best person to relate to people's hardships, because I've dealt with that. I've have those experiences ingrained in my character. So when I see people in substandard housing, I feel that. When I hear stuff about climate change, I feel that. And if you want to feel warm, fuzzy feelings about me, believe in my policies, go to my website, and believe that I'm the person that fixed these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Well, thanks so much, and thanks to all involved with putting this together. Thanks for all the folks who've showed up, and it's marvelous. And the questions have been very difficult, and the answers provided by each person were varied but remarkable. And again, thanks for. It's grand that we're all here. First of all, I wouldn't be in Dubuque. I wouldn't still be in Dubuque. I arrived in 2002 after spending too much time in Florida where it was too hot. So I'm appreciative of the weather. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't enjoy immensely living in Dubuque. I wouldn't be running for mayor if it weren't going to be an adventure, personally, and also if it didn't provide the opportunity for me to connect with people. The zooming around and not via Zoom, but by being actually in the three dimensions and finding people to sign signatures was a marvelous adventure, face to face, even though the faces were covered with masks. So, but that said, I'd like to repeat what I think is it just sums everything up. As mayor, I want to help Dubuque become one of the healthiest, safest, and greenest cities in the country, perhaps the world. And as that becomes the case, then Dubuque, because of all the hard work of the people within, Dubuque becomes the city that teaches all the other communities, state, national, world, how to succeed. So thanks again so much. It's been an adventure, and blessings to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Thank you. Thank you to the league, and thank you to all involved that put on this good forum. It's a very good conversation. I heard a lot of good answers. As you know, some of you know, I'm a veteran, so I do have a little bit of leadership experience. But I also believe in leading by example, and I also believe that this country has gotten away, as well as the city, from what it was intended, and that's for elected officials to actually work for the people, by the people. And I don't feel like the council has really listened. Now, they can say they've talked to people, but I've also heard that they don't want to listen to other opinions either. So what I would do before every vote, I would actually get a consensus to see what the majority of people think, because I think this city needs to go back to the people. It needs to belong to the people, and they need to have a say in what goes on in this city. I also want to work with the police department and the community to try to, if we could, set up an anti-human trafficking force. That has not been talked about. It's a little thing in Iowa that's going on worse than people think. We have 2 bridges leading out of state, and there's very opportunist ways for predators to traffic children in and out of the state. So I want to set up a task force to do that. As you've heard from a couple of candidates or council members too, you got to see how condescending they were towards certain answers, and that's kind of what the people are getting a feeling from in this town too. So just remember, all the people that are listening, I won't be condescending to you. I'm going to be on the equal level to everybody and listen to everybody's concerns in this town. And that's how I'm going to take the vote when I get on council in every single issue that comes up.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn.
I'm also going to give.
I'm sorry, Mr. Flynn, your 2 minutes are up. Mr. Resnick?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the League of Women Voters for this challenging technology and live conversation. It's I know it is challenging. So I would like to talk about, again, the 2 I think, critical issues that the mayor needs to have experience. All right, that's number one. And the second is commitment to these people in Dubuque, Iowa. And I talk about my experience, or I mentioned it at least, but I haven't said much about it. Maybe some people were curious about this Resnick button that I'm wearing tonight. This belonged to my father when he ran for office in Davenport, Iowa, and I'm lucky to say he's been my hero, and he passed away. But I watched him and I saw what he did for the people of Davenport, and he inspired me to serve others. Along with my mother, who, if you know her, she's a great Irish, twinkly-eyed woman. But she lives in Davenport. But I've spent 25 years at Clark University as a teacher and well-respected member of the faculty. For the last 3 years, I've done other things. You got to challenge yourself, as I've heard tonight. So I've been on the executive side, where I have budgets, I have to keep people working, strategic planning. That's the experience that's really important. Of course, I could talk about all the different boards and commissions I'm on, but the experience I like is getting out and talking to people. And I do it this way. I get out to festivals. I've been on a lot of athletic teams. And that's where you really talk to the heart of Dubuque. In music, arts, athletics, I know what the people want in Dubuque, and I'm ready to serve them.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, and thank you again for putting this together tonight. Back in the 70s, I was a theater arts major at the University of Dubuque. 2 years into it, and they came and told us there wouldn't be a department the next year. Had I completed that major, I could be pushing a broom in a theater somewhere and thinking I made it. I lucked on to employment at the city of Dubuque as a firefighter, advanced to ambulance driver / attendant, then medical officer, then captain, then emergency medical services supervisor. I had a ball exploring and pioneering that brand new world of emergency medical service that was more than you fall, you call, we haul, that's all. We brought actual treatment to the patients, and couldn't be prouder of that and how it is today. I've been on this council. When I retired from the fire department, I left on a Friday afternoon. I took the weekend off and announced my candidacy for council the next Monday, and it's been a pretty busy time ever since. I'm about maintaining a safe community, and that includes attention to social issues, including poverty reduction, equity, and justice, COVID recovery, including protection of the community's public health, financial health, and brain health. And I got to tell you, folks, COVID made us better at governing because we can reach into your homes now, like we did tonight. We had candidates online remotely, and we've purchased equipment that's going to be installed soon to make this a truly interactive room where we'll be able to interact with citizens and conduct public hearings without the need to come down here to chambers, and I'm excited about that. We're talking about viable infrastructure to build our future on, assuring resilience and growth as well as jobs and sustainability to create a resilient city that's equitable, financially secure, and environmentally smart. The metric that I use for most city council decisions is, will anyone be better off if we do this? And if the answer is yes, then I'll support it and vote for it and work hard to make it happen. If the answer is no, it needs some more discussion or it needs a no vote. I'll tell you, we're not done with anything. We thought you could easily look at the B branch and say, what a great project it's done. But along came the library and said, let's build a story path. Yeah, so not done. Another new idea, another great execution. There's more coming.
Thank you. Mr. Mikalakis?
Thank you. I just want to tell you that if I become this at-large city council member, that one of the things I want to go for is the taxes. Now, I'd like to know where the money goes from for the casino that was supposed to raise our taxes or lower our taxes, I mean. Where's the money go from the curbside recycling? Was supposed to go to lowering our taxes? Never went there. Where's the extra money from this big boat ramp that they're talking about? They said this is going to make so much money, pay for everything, but the extra money, shouldn't that go for the taxes? But yet they want to raise our taxes. I don't think that most of the people in the city council are really looking out for us. I'm here to look out for the people. I'm the working man, and I'm here for the working man. I'm here for the city housing and stuff too. But the people that we have in the city do not have what it takes to be in their jobs. We got the wrong people in the wrong jobs, and it's taken our city backwards, including our housing, including our taxes, including a lot of things, you know? So I'm here for the people. I just think that, you know, if we had the right people in housing, we could get our housing people back. They would take the vouchers. They would, you know, clean up their places. But, you know, right now they're telling these people, you got to have this done in 15 minutes or we're fining you. Well, these people don't want to give up, you know, they can go rent it to somebody else. They don't need the housing vouchers and they don't want it because of all the bull that comes with it. They're not giving people enough time. It takes a lot of money to fix all these houses up, and then they're worried about where people are going to live. And well, that's why. You're too hard on the people. You can't do that. You got to give people a break, and they're not doing it. They need to make more space for, like I said, where's our park? I've lived here my whole life. We don't have no park. You know, where's our little beach? We don't have any of that stuff. Where's all the money going? I want to know where all the money went. You know, I want to know where the money went from the casino, the curbside recycling. Where's all this money going for the dock? Where do they put all the extra money? I don't know. Do you know? I want to know.
Thank you. All right, well, the Dubuque League of Women Voters certainly thanks all the candidates for their participation. This forum can be seen again on City Channel Dubuque on cable channel 8 or digital 117.2. It's being streamed live on the city Facebook page and the website. Thanks to the city cable channel for providing this service. I'd like to thank the voters for watching, and thanks for all the questions. There were so many, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to them all. Remember, for the primary on October 5th, please vote. And then we'll have another candidate forum for the city council and mayor positions on October 11th. And we are also planning a school board candidates forum on October 20th. Thank you very much.